What's up, everybody? Welcome back. I told you we're back, man.
SJ.
We're here. But we're going to start off with a few listener stories and then get into the topic of the hour.
Well, I think before we begin the episode, we have to discuss the name change. Do you want to talk about that?
Nope.
Nope.
I thought you could talk about...
Fair enough.
I thought you were talking about... Well, before we said Gargoyles.
Oh, no.
That's 5 episodes.
Well, we mentioned it, that there's a name change at the very beginning, or the very end.
The very end of,
Like literally last 3 seconds. Oh, yeah, about the name.
I know. I totally... It slipped my mind, but we have a new intro, and it's the same show, same podcast, different name. We're called the Spirit Talkers, and I know, towards the end of that last one, I just kind of threw it out there. But for more information, we changed the name because just like we don't want a letter sent to us saying, hey, that's because Unsolved Mysteries is it's a hot name.
It's a branded name.
Yeah, it's a branded name, and I believe anything that kind of goes along with that is a no-no. So we don't want to get I think it's called a cease and
desist.
Yeah.
I don't kind of want one of those. I think it'd be cool to frame it, number one. And then number two, it means that there's somebody like big wigs out there listening. So that'd be kind of cool. But yeah, just to avoid all of that, we did change the name.
Now, do we have to delete the other episodes since we say our name is Unsolved Mysteries of the Reservation?
Nah, not until we officially get
That'd
that
be
letter.
crazy.
Got to go back and fix it.
I mean, if we get a letter, that'd be pretty cool.
That'd be cool, yeah.
Yeah, we'd make copies for everybody, and we would frame it.
Sell them.
Yeah. Sell.
Signed copies of the cease and desist letter.
It might be at the some powwow. I don't know. We might be selling our letters.
Yeah. That's all we got.
Get your very own
cease and desist letter.
I keep wanting to say deceased letter. Cease and desist letter from us. But yeah, that's what we've done. That's the only thing I could really think of. But I mean, it was brought to our attention that we might want to change the name. And I mean, we kind of talked about it when we got here. Tyler was just saying it was kind of just a spur of the moment type of episode. Yeah. It was one episode, one off, and then we did one, and it did really great.
Oh, it did fantastic.
Yeah,
it blew up,
and then everybody loved the just the idea of our folklore tales, paranormal and stuff, like our point of view and everything, and just stories out there that we tell. And I mean, it caught a lot of people's attention, and there's nothing like it, actually.
Yeah.
When we started it, but I didn't have the idea. I just thought we're talking about Bigfoot,
Right.
And then because everybody's so interested always in Bigfoot, and then we thought of DW, and so we just gradually started building on, the name, and then we just started going off, and then finally we all just kind of came together and was like, man, we should just do the whole thing of it on its own type of show. It's it won't be so confusing, and everybody could just listen to it or whatever. And it just became what it's, what it is now. And shout out to the listeners, viewers, whatever, followers. Shout out to everybody supporting us and loving what we do, and it's awesome.
Yeah, feedback, the love, support, it's awesome.
And the stories.
We wouldn't be anything without the stories, really. Because it's definitely given us some other topics to talk about. Oh, yeah, we should do an episode on that, or get a cool story and, go off on that. We could do a whole episode on that, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Go off, King. No. But yeah, what'd you think, Chris, when we started this? Because I know I brought you on mine, and then I don't know, and then we all just kind of came together.
Yeah.
About 6 months later, and that's when we did that Bigfoot episode.
Like I've always said, I'm real proud to be part of this show. When you guys approached me about this, there's a lot of topics out there that I don't think people really understand, or there's not a lot of information out there. You know, the thing I hate to hear is people telling these stories about some of these ancient beings, and they're all scary. That they don't have the concept of some of these things weren't meant to be scary. They were created for good, and they had their purpose. And even some of the ones that are scary, again, they had a purpose behind them. And that was one of the things when you first came to me about coming on. I told you, I have a different viewpoint of these stories and of these things that doesn't go with the mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I'm glad you guys gave me the opportunity to kind of shine a little light on some of these subjects and topics. I've always been very happy how things have turned out, because on this show, not only do I give information, but I also get a lot of information. I learn a lot from this show myself, not only from the listeners, but from each and every one of you that are sitting on here, and that's amazing. To me, this is an awesome venue and an awesome show, not just because it's us, but it's because the things that you can learn from this. When I'm out and about, I've got elders coming up to me, telling things that their young people aren't sharing, that they gave them these stories, but again, they've been altered or changed, and they're glad that somebody out there is kind of giving them a voice. Again, I commend you and Tyler for doing this to give people voices, and I appreciate that. But
yeah, whenever, because I had you on that first time, and like I said, like I grew up around you because you worked in Pawnee. And you were always at the Rome Chief when I'd go there for tutoring. Didn't help. But
gave him all the wrong information.
Chris wasn't the tutor. He worked in education. But I mean, like, everybody would go there and just hang out and, like, just be on the computers and just being there and Rome Chief. And I remember, like, always hearing, like, some scary stuff about Rome Chief. But I didn't know Chris was, like, into paranormal stuff. Had I known that, I probably would have asked you some stuff, but dang, probably got scared because I was still a kid, and
yeah.
and I was still like just wondering like what was out there, and I didn't know too much about the paranormal. I just knew like what people were telling me at that time, being so young. But having you on now and we talk about it in that episode, dang, it was almost about 2 years ago, I guess. That was like kind of when I first started, and I brought you on and our friend Julian, and then talking more and more about it, and then coming on this one and coming all together, and then just talk about like the good and bad entities. Like some can be bad, right? But some can be good. There's always a balance between good and evil. And then just a lot of information that I appreciate and now cherish. And I'm always thinking too, like, wanting to just learn more and listen and just kind of figure out what more is out there, because I know there's tons of people out there. There's a lot of tribes, a lot of stories, and using this reach to get stories and whatever information we could share, because I know a lot of stuff isn't shareable. I know they don't want it to be public knowledge, and it's tricky, it's scary, to kind of tell things out in the open. And then like, cause you don't know, like, cause there's names for certain beings, and we don't want to say because there's irresponsibility out there, and a lot of things can be done wrong. So, we just do enough to where we do give information, and people are appreciative, because like you brought it to my attention too, that some people don't have like somebody telling them stuff. They don't have anybody to go to. And I always hear it too, man. It's like, it's a lot of great info, and they enjoy listening to it, and looking forward to the next episode or whatever it is. And then there's something else I'm gonna say, Tyler. I'll think of it.
Yeah, I just think growing up too, we're lucky to have somebody like Chris that's willing to talk, because just growing up, we were always just kind of, it wasn't one of those things that was just said. It was just one of those things that everybody just kind of knew. You just didn't talk about it. It was one of those things you don't ask about it, you don't talk about it unless that subject is brought up on its own or like naturally through conversations. But other than that, like, I was afraid to seek out information because I was always kind of told not to do that. That when you start, but you've always said too, when you start talking about these things, it brings things up. It could, I think as Muskogee people, there's a lot of power in our words, and when you talk about those things start to come around. That's just that old way of thinking, which is still, alive and well. But I don't know. Like, I'm just glad that we have somebody that's willing to share what they can, because I learned so much. I know that first couple episodes, Chris was telling me, for $50, I'll tell you whatever you want. So after I greased that palm, he started spilling, and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna start doing this for free. But it took me $100.
Dang.
Nah, it's counterfeit.
To crack that nut. No, I'm just kidding.
Another thing I wanted to say too, and I really commend both you guys for doing this. Again, just like Russell said, there's a lot of children out there that don't have grandma and grandpa anymore, and they don't have the aunts and uncles that had that kind of knowledge. And the thing I'm really thankful for is that I'm getting to see other people taking this on. They always have that philosophy, you throw that little pebble in the water and it makes ripples. And what you guys did, you're starting to see other podcasts. You're starting to see other shows. You're even seeing topics like this in movies, and I'm not saying that it's all, based from here, but technically, yeah, it is. If you believe in that, what do they call that? They believe everybody's connected somewhere, somehow.
Almost said 7 deadly sins, but that's not it. It's 7 degrees of separation, or 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah, something like that. And so, with what you guys have shared, on this show, you guys have to me have influenced not only Indian country, but non-natives as well. So not to take anything from any of these other creators, but again, when you guys started this, there was nothing out there like that. And for that, I know nobody's ever going to say this to you, but you guys did a good job. You guys did this, and now you're starting to see the fruits of your labor. You're seeing all these other venues out there that's taking this on, and it's all the way from Texas all the way up to the Alaska. You're seeing people talking about these things, sharing these things, and to me that's good. That's a good blessing, because this stuff needs to be carried on. These stories need to go on. Every generation needs these stories. And, because of what ripples that you guys have made, there's a good chance of that going to happen.
Yeah.
Mado.
Yeah. So that was the reason why, we changed the name, because, we were having a lot of reach too with beyond, just reservations and everything too. When we go live on TikTok, people from Australia or, just overseas in general too, and they're like, I'm from here. I'm from, when can I come through? And it's crazy to hear that from overseas. People listen to what we have to say, and then also have similar stories as well. We hear so much similarities over there and in here, and it's these stories that just have not been told or anything, and then I'll go across TikTok and there'll sometimes be people live and they're telling scary stories too, and they're just like in that moment of, just talking about whatever their tribe has gone through or history or, a lot of things. And it's like, it's just that algorithm, I guess. That human algorithm is like hitting. So, but yeah, it's been a great time. We're retiring. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, but but that's, Spirit Talkers. That's our name, and I believe we're going to stick with it.
Yeah,
I think so. But yeah, it was just kind of advised of us that we should probably switch up our name, and so we don't get sued, I guess. Be an honor. It'd be an honor by what was his name? Robert Stack.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
He came to me and gave me a piece of black rope. I was like, oh.
So
and a cease and desist letter.
He reaches out of that grave to grab you by your lips. Say, shh. No.
Grab that tongue.
Stretch you out.
But yeah, once again, thanks everybody for listening, contacting us, catching us wherever we're at, and saying, "Hey, I got a story." Keep them coming.
Yeah,
we appreciate them.
Even at Rooster Day.
Yeah, even at Rooster Day. Tyler was riding a mechanical bull, mechanical rooster. I'm just kidding. And then some guy was like, "Oh man, I love the show."
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, and then even like shout out to Vintage Toy Mall. One of their employees listened to us, and he said his wife really enjoys the show. And so, have you been in there lately?
Yeah, I actually go in there about once a week.
Wear your shirt in there.
I will.
Yeah.
Well, I can't now because I ripped it.
Oh,
at Rooster Day. Man. Fell off that mechanical rooster.
Never mind.
My thighs weren't as strong as they used to be. That grip.
So you didn't have that turtle grip on that seat like that. Well,
either that or I thought I did, and then lightning struck and knocked me off. Ripped my shirt, Hogan style.
Is it ripped in the front?
Nah, ripped down the back.
Just
I had to go home because my wife was embarrassed. She was like, "I ain't walking around with you looking like that." But I got a funnel cake anyway.
Just put that duct tape on it.
Yep. So,
but
lost my shirt at Rooster Day.
dang.
Should gave to that person that came up to you.
Like, no thanks.
Here you go.
It's been cursed.
Thank you, Mr. Randall. Oh, but we got some listener stories, and I'm gonna read this one. So on the last episode, I didn't know if he wanted to be anonymous or if he wanted to say his name, but his name is Grant, and that's all I'll say. And he said he's from North Carolina, a Cherokee living out in North Carolina. But this one's about a black dog. The black dog was a couple years ago. I was driving to work. It was late at night because at the time I was working third shift in a factory. As I was flying down the road, a black coyote-looking thing ran out in front of my car as I'm doing 70 miles per hour. It made it to just in front of my car, and when I was bracing to hit it, it completely disappeared. The car didn't hit it, and it didn't cross over the wall separating this highway. The whole next week, I had bad luck with everything. I was called into a charity rodeo that weekend. I went and paid my fees to go to my charity. Paid my fees to go to the charity, but it turned out my bull. What? But I turned out my bull because I knew that was a sign that something bad would have happened if I rode that night. Turned out. That must be maybe, rodeo lingo.
Yeah,
turned out my bull.
Don't they draw like you draw a certain bull, and maybe he got a certain bull that was maybe black or something, and he turned it down, or maybe something like that.
True.
Because I don't think they just be like, this one, get on that one. I think they draw. You know what I mean? Like they have. I don't know how it works. I'm not even gonna pretend like I know how it works. But it is
I was really listening to you. I said,
giving
"Damn."
information.
Man, I am dancing around like just speaking in circles, man.
I said, "Dang, he really knows."
Well, I thought I did.
I
but
thought you
maybe
rode
I-
roosters. No, I'm just kidding.
So it's similar to rooster riding, but
That's what we did.
that's how we do it over there. No.
I honestly think that when you enter a rodeo, it's like you draw a bull, a certain bull.
Uh-huh.
Like I don't know if it's out of a hat or like whatever. You draw a bull. Maybe he got that bull. Maybe it had a name that had bad luck to him. I'm putting words in his mouth, but this is what I'm thinking happened. And he got that, and he saw it as a bad omen. Maybe it was a black bull, all black bull, and he turned it down. Maybe that's a penalty. I don't know how it works. I'm just shooting from the hip.
That sounds pretty cool, though. I'll tell you that.
Grant, is Tyler right? Let us know. I'm sure. I don't know if that's a misspelling, but he said I turned out my bull. I don't know if it means turned down my bull.
Maybe that's what it is. Turned it down.
I don't know. Maybe it's I don't know. But
Or maybe he rode that bull so good.
Turned it out.
He turned it out,
Yeah.
boys.
Inside out. Went in a bull, came out some steaks.
for the whole rodeo.
Oh.
Turned it inside out. Dang. You wore it like a cape. Danced around the rodeo ring in it.
Had it at F5, the Brock Lesnar position, carrying it. But Grant, let us know what happened after that. Because that's all it says. That's all it said.
He's probably saying, man, those guys are stupid.
Yeah. Hey,
That's the last time I send them all a story.
block us. I'm blocking them.
Man, I'm sorry, Grant.
Please delete that
It was a
episode.
cool story. And I was
It
trying to
was.
make something more out of it, I guess. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. If there's more info, though, let us know. Because it just kind of ends. And I would like to know kind of where that, if you turn down the bull, like what made you turn it down? Like, I know the coyote you seen, but what else like happened that week? Because it says a whole week went by and he had
Bad
nothing
luck.
but bad luck. And I don't know. I heard like stuff like if a coyote runs across the road anyways, does that, people say like it depends on the direction as well. Is that something, Chris? Have you heard anything like that?
Yeah, I've heard stuff like that. It's just kind of the same thing as like that black cat, crossing your path. There's different people have different, mythology or myths about that coyote, that a lot of natives have that, if you see a coyote certain time of the day, that's bad luck, and so I agree with that. So,
Tyler?
All right. Does he want to remain anonymous or on this one? Or did he say?
he wants you to turn that bull out.
Okay, he said you can say my name.
All right. So this one comes from Derek Birdtail. It says, hello, I'm a full-blood Cherokee and have been trying to learn as many stories as I can. I have a question. I remember when I was younger, maybe about 12 or 13, I was lying in bed and I remember like I was in the middle of being asleep and being awake. And I just got this eerie feeling, and then all of a sudden I remember this dark shadow start to hover over my body, and I just couldn't do anything. I just had to lay there while the dark figure seemed to climb over me. I remember being terrified, but I couldn't do anything, and I couldn't make out any features other than darkness. As the darkness came over my face, I just remember losing my breath and struggling for air, yet I couldn't seem to get anything out. And finally, I remember my mom and dad rushing in my room, and whatever was over me seemed to let go. It may have been a dream, but it always seemed so real to me. That kind of reminds me of that story that I told about like sleep paralysis. Like I was kind of awake, but there was somebody in my house. I could just sense it. And no matter just struggling, I could not, I was just sunk into the couch. And it scared me because I was like, get up, get up, get up. And then I started thinking I was outside and just having all these crazy feelings or all these crazy ideas in my head. So maybe sounds something like that. But then he goes on to say, a couple years later, I was not even asleep yet. and we had an attic fan, and I had my door open with a shoe, and my window was open for air. I just remember hearing and seeing the door open, and in creeped a dark figure which looked like it had long dark hair. That feeling kind of started to take effect on me again, but finally I shut my eyes real tight, and when I opened them again, it was gone, and I just remember jumping up and shutting my door. And then about 20 years later, my coworker was telling me of some nightmares her son was having, and it brought back those memories. He was having similar things happen with him. I also, about that time, seen a movie that come out about 5 years ago called Dead Awake, and the movie was about something similar. Are there any similar stories with something to that effect? Just curious, because it seems to be similar to the other stories. So, yeah, kind of like I said, too, you know, like that sleep paralysis story. I had something like that similar happen to me over a series of probably like a few weeks. I just kept having like these ideas that I was just asleep, but I wasn't asleep. And then just it was so real, like somebody being in my house. I think at one point, like I got stabbed or something. It was freaky, man, because like I knew somebody's in my apartment, and I just could not. Like I said, like I was glued shut, and I felt heavy, like something was like pushing down on me, like keeping me in place. And I just remember like almost in my brain, like get up, you're gonna die, you're gonna die, you're gonna die. Scary, but that happened to me personally a few times. I didn't have a figure or anything that I saw. I just sensed it, like somebody was in my apartment. Something was in my apartment. I just knew it. There was just no doubt in my mind. There was something in my apartment, you know. So.
That Derek Birdtail, he lives down there in that Porham area. You know, he's one of the ones that, you know, help put on that cancer awareness powwow that we went to, and you know he's real active. You know, but he's also Cherokee, and he lives down there in those how you say Cherokee territory. You know, with these tribes, you know, Cherokees, Creeks, Seminoles, you know, and there's a few other tribes out there. You know, they have ways of putting you to sleep and really causing havoc, you know, and you'll hear these kind of stories out of there. So they're not really sleep paralysis type things. It's someone actually, how you say, witching someone. You know, and this is kind of like one of those stories. Now, not that I'm saying this is the case, but you know, this sounds, you know, pretty similar. The only thing that I would say would be definite that somebody's doing this to him is if he's waking up being scratched, or, you know, really being sick when he wakes up. You know, that this person's probably got his number. You know, and like I said, you know, in these tribes area, that's pretty prominent, you know, for them to still practice those kind of things today, you know. So, you know, not blaming nobody or say anything negative about anybody, but these are, how you say, real cases. So, I mean, that's probably a pretty strong probability. There's a few things that I was listening to hear more about that I could say for certain that's probably what this is, but you know, you never know, and especially in where he's from, those guys still practice that.
But if it's only happening, he said that every 5 years or so, or every year, like, does it eventually just stop, or does he have to seek out somebody to make that stop? Especially the only way I'm concerned is he was talking about somebody, his son, like going after their little son. Like, I mean, I know that would be a way to get to the adult is by punishing the son, but I don't know, like, what happens with that? Like, if it's a kid, is he going to have these problems for the rest of his life?
No, those things are usually sent for some particular person, and then once they're done, usually when they take them out, I guess you might say, it'll be no more because it done took its life. You know, that's what it's feeding. You know, go on to somebody else, but it won't stay in that home it'll go somewhere else. And to answer your other question, yes, he'll have to go to somebody. It's probably down in that area, but it's got to be someone that I don't know how you say, someone you can trust. If you understand what I mean by that, in these areas, these guys, you don't know who's good and who's bad. You might be going to the one that's actually witching you, and you asking for help, and he goes, "Yeah, I'll help you." Then really get you. But again, I would say he probably needs to go see somebody. Even if it is 5 years, because this is the only time that you'll see those symbols, but you're not seeing everything else. And we've talked about this on previous shows. There's other elements to these, I don't know what you call witching stories, that a lot of people overlook, till it's too late. Maybe their last breath, they'll put it all together and say, "Dang, this guy's been working on me for a long time." And, that's it. It's too late. You're gone. Your last breath.
Did he say if he'd been scratched or anything, or no?
It didn't say. He'd been scratched. He just kind of left it up. He didn't know, like, maybe it was influenced by that movie that he saw. But it said, like, his mom and dad came in and whatever it was, let go. I don't know whether they woke him up after he kind of came to. That all released him. But it doesn't say anything about him being scratched or anything like that. He said, like, jumping up and shutting the door, stuff like that. But it doesn't say, like, he woke up with any kind of scratches or nothing. So,
yeah, Derek, if there's any more info you want to send our way, let us know. But did he say that figure looked like Dead Awake?
He said he had just seen that movie. And
he said it didn't look like it?
Yeah, that's what he kind of said.
Because I was going to say, here's what's in that movie. If he said that was what it kind of looked like.
He said it had long, dark hair. Yeah, it says, let me go back here for a minute.
I have to watch that. You ever watch that?
I've never seen it.
I don't want to watch
Dead
it now.
Yeah, no
Chris,
kidding.
watch it.
Be like The Ring.
You watch it and then let me know if anything happens. No, I'm just kidding.
Tyler,
I've not seen it, but
No.
it looks really interesting.
Somebody out there watch that movie for us and then let us know.
Give us the cliff notes.
About 30 days later, if nothing happens to you.
It says here, 20 years later, my coworker was telling me some nightmares her son was having, and it brought back memories. He was having similar things happen to him, but he had also, about that time, I don't know if he's talking about himself or he's talking about the son, but he says, I seen a movie come out about 5 years ago called Dead Awake, and the movie is about something similar.
Oh.
So I guess it has to do with a creature coming to you or entity coming to you in sleep, maybe holding you down. I don't know.
I've never heard of that movie.
Sounds cool. Looks cool.
Yeah. If anybody out there wants to watch it,
Russell, let me know what you think.
Chris, let me know.
Y'all let us know if anything happens to you in 30 days after you watch that movie.
Passing that torch.
Meanwhile, Bigfoot's Wild Weekend. That's more my speed.
Do you know there's a sequel coming after that?
Is there really?
I don't know.
I don't know. Honestly, I've never seen it other than the clips. But I have seen a lot of movies, and we'll talk about it later, that have been very native related. That I don't know. We'll talk about it later because we got other stuff to get to. but not Bigfoot's Wild Weekend.
I've got a listener story. Let me see if I can get it to play on here. This one is from Alice Cloud. And let's see.
To everyone. I am from the state of Wisconsin. I am an enrolled member of the Ho-Chunk Nation. I live at the time, in the Wisconsin Dells area. And I lived on trust land back in 2008 with my 2 children. I have 2 girls, and at the time they were ages 10 and 6. And So, my story is that late one evening, I had went somewhere. I believe it was Walmart, and I was coming back home, and it was around 11 o'clock at night, and it was summer, so it was really hot. And I had a Volkswagen Beetle, so I had the sunroof open, and I had both of the windows down. As I was coming into our village, I was going at a slow speed up the hill because I lived on top of a hill. And on top of our hill, there is a street light that was shining, and it was on. And as I was driving up the hill, I could see what appeared to be, my first thought was, that is a gargoyle. And I couldn't believe what I saw because, when you think of a gargoyle, you think of like statues that belong in New York City, or you think of a cartoon character. So when I saw it, it was unbelievable. So it was flying. It had a very large wingspan, and it was black. It had a long tail in between its two legs, and it had claws. So I thought, well, maybe I'm looking at some very large bird or something. And I was looking up through my window this time, my driver's side window, and I was peeking my head out like, what the heck did I just see? And when I looked at my daughter, she was 10, she was on the passenger side. And I stopped the car and I said to her, did you just see what I saw? And she's like, she looked at me and she said, you mean you saw a gargoyle? I was like, yes, that is exactly what I thought. So we had both thought of the same thing. And I never said anything to her about what I had thought I had seen. And by that time, I was pretty shaken up. And the kids were scared too. And I was driving up the hill. I saw it again. And when it flew over us, it cast a shadow onto my car because we were just about to hit the street light. And when I had looked up as I was driving past the street light, it actually landed on top of the street light. When it landed, it actually looked like one of them statues that you see on a building. It had its wings were out, and it was black, hairy, it had a long tail, and it had like these long legs. It didn't look like a man with wings. I mean, it looked like a one of them evil gargoyles is what it looked like. It was skinny. It wasn't thick by any means. And as it was sitting there, you could see its eyes. It had big, black, oval type eyes. And so I knew I would have to keep going because my house would be on the left. And so I quickly closed the moonroof. I rolled up the windows as fast as I could. And before I could get to our driveway, I told my girls, I said, okay, this is the plan. We are going to head into the house as quickly as we can. I said the door is unlocked. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to park this car and I'm going to turn on the brights, and you girls are going to exit the car quickly. And by then they were like, we don't want to go without you, Mom. And I said, it's going to be okay. You girls go in quickly first, and then I'm going to shut off the car, and then I'm going to run in after you and lock the door. And they said, okay. So we counted to 10, and I was trying to see if I could see it, but yet at the same time, I did not want to even look because we were so terrified. And at the same time, I just couldn't believe that my 10-year-old daughter knew what a gargoyle was, and even the word itself, it just blew my mind that she knew what it was. And we both saw the same exact thing. And I honestly have to say that if she didn't witness that with me, I probably would have talked myself out of it, saying it was something else or my mind is playing tricks on me. Anyway, my girls went in quickly, and they were so scared they just booked it to the front door. And then it was my turn, and I shut off the car, and I ran, and I quickly, just shut the door, locked it. I went into my home, I closed all of the windows, made sure they were locked, closed my curtains, and I'll tell you what, that night, I could not sleep knowing something like that is in my neighborhood. And I couldn't figure out why. I couldn't figure out what it was. To even say gargoyle just sounds ridiculous, but that is exactly what we thought it was and what it was doing there. Not quite sure. I know that the Wisconsin Dells area is pretty woodsy. We have the Wisconsin River. We do have eagles. We do have lots of wildlife out in our trust land. So, I mean, I guess if it was looking for something to eat, it probably would have found something very quickly. But regardless, it was very spooky. I had always thought maybe I was going to run into it again, but we never did. We never did see it again, and I'm pretty happy about that. But that is what happened to us, and I'm telling it as I saw it. Thank you for listening to me.
Muddo.
Whoa, that was crazy.
That's terrifying.
That is super scary.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think I've seen a gargoyle out in New Mexico, but like her, it's like it doesn't. I don't know. You don't want to say dang, it is. I don't know. I was thinking of Jeepers Creepers maybe because it was just this wing thing, but it was pretty big, and I was waiting for her description of it, and I didn't see it up close like that. I mean, to see it, what'd she say, on a light pole? It just kind of, it came down and it sat on a light pole, and it was hairy, big eyes, and I was just trying to I wish I could draw, because I wish I could draw it. Tyler, you can draw.
I can draw it. Like a police sketch. Might look like Robin Jackson when I'm done. That's weird. I think I know that guy.
Rob with little wings. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, that's pretty terrifying, man. I mean, I don't know. I was just playing it out in my head like a movie.
Yeah.
It's did she say it's all black, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Black and hairy.
It's all black and hairy and
long tail.
A long tail. But it didn't really, it had legs and arms. She said like not human wise, but it was, I don't know. I just think of like a humanoid.
Yeah.
I don't know. Where was that, in Wisconsin?
Yes.
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Are there any like churches? Like I've always heard stories though of like, historically they're placed on tops of churches to kind of like a rain spout. It kind of diverts water away from the sides of the buildings, which causes erosion. It's before guttering. It's like an ancient way of guttering, I guess.
Yeah.
And then like that word is a French word. I think it's gargoyle gargoyle, and it means throat. And so that's why you'll see a lot of these gargoyle statues, the ones I'm talking about, with their mouths wide open, and that sort of symbolizes devouring prey or devouring your soul or taking your soul. So that's why you see a lot of them kind of perched as if they're going to attack, or they're looking down, because when you're going into a church or you're going into a building, you're looking up, they're looking at you. It serves as kind of twofold, as a way of saying, like, if you don't believe, only true believers enter this building, because if you don't, this is what awaits you. And then the other reason is to scare you into, like, leaving all your negative thoughts, or if you walk in, you see that and you don't feel comfortable, then you leave. So they only want the true believers in places like that. So I was wondering, like, if there are any buildings close by that have like a gargoyle, because I've also heard, again, that this is just me kind of going off topic a little bit, but where at night they leave and they kind of prowl around and they kind of protect those buildings, and they kind of protect that area, kind of like a hawk would, or like a bird of prey would. And then in the morning time or by daylight, they go back and they perch back on their perch. So I didn't know, like, maybe she just happened to see one and it saw her see it, which was kind of like intimidating her and her kids, or what that was. But it'd be interesting to know, like, if there's any churches in that area or with any miles or distance between them.
Oh yeah, that's probably, she's talking about that Wisconsin Dale area.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit, now whether they're Catholic cathedrals or what, I don't know, but there's, I think if I remember correctly, they got a lot of Methodists and those kind of churches up in that area, and Baptist churches, and so I don't know. I'm sure they got Catholics up there, or Mormons or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they've got some kind of church up there.
Yeah, that's a great story. So if you have any other information about buildings in that area that may have a gargoyle, let us know. That'd be cool to know that. Maybe you saw one. I mean, like, saw one from that building.
Mm-hmm.
She could go to that building and say, "Oh, that's the one I saw." Could have a statue of it. Like I said, I've heard of them coming awake at night, or certain times of the day, or certain times of the year, or something like that, and they prowl. I don't know.
They turn back to stone in the daytime.
Mm-hmm.
Dang.
Before sunup.
I think that's fascinating to hear that story. I was waiting to hear Tyler. I know he's got a lot of different stories, but I'm gonna I guess jump on ahead and go with the native version of it. Again, this story that I'm getting ready to tell is an ancient story. And I'm going to be the first one to say, there's a lot of similar stories like this. So I know everybody's going to say, that's not the way that story's supposed to go, or, it goes different ways. But if you actually listen to the original story, it makes those other stories make sense. So this is the actual origin of all these other stories from all these other nations, I guess you might say. So anyway, with that being said, again, if I butcher it or leave something out, I apologize. I'm gonna do my very best to kind of, I know today we've been kind of flip-flopping back and forth on, a lot of stuff, and again, that's my fault because, I got so many stories. I'm getting them mixed up, but I want to make sure that everybody that sends a story to me that, I do play it or, try to cover it. But, again, this is one of those original ancient stories. So I know a lot of people's going to claim this. So again, no disrespect to anybody, but the way I was told from an old elder, he was telling me this story. He was saying it was one of the original stories of the raven and the coyote. And I know a lot of tribes have that story. Actually, about every tribe has it. Anyway, to make a long story short, the raven and coyote, they were, spiritual beings, and the way I looked at it, or my understanding of it, it was good and evil. That's that concept of good and evil. The original version of Raven, he was the one over death, and he had supernatural powers. He could do a lot of different things, and Coyote, he was originally a good character. He wasn't that trickster that you heard, from many different nations at this point in time. And, Coyote, he was the one of creation. He could make births and create beings, and that was his job. So you had death on one side and you had life on the other. You had evil on one side and you had good on the other. I always said, natives, they had that good concept of good and evil. And this was the prime, story of this. As, they said, all was good, that Coyote and Raven, they worked together to create this world the way it was, and, again, Coyote ended up having a family. And he had a son that he loved, very dearly. And for whatever reason, Raven decided it was time for that son to take that journey, and he took him. And as the story goes, Coyote was heartbroken, and he asked, can he bring him back to life? Can you give me the sanction to bring him back? And Raven said, no, it was his time. I must, this is how it's supposed to be, to have that balance. And to make a long story short, there was a lot of history that went on after that, but bottom line is, Coyote was hurt. And he was angry. And they said, he created all these different negative entities. And their sole job was to take out Raven. And, one of these beings that they talked about was a winged flying serpent. And, or lizard. They called it a lizard. The pictures of it, it was a lizard with wings. And if you hear or you even see those gargoyle type entities, that's kind of what they look like. Winged, some of them have horns, and so do lizards. Some have horns, and some have one horn, two horns. They're different, and but it was created to basically take out Raven, but during this time, Raven, he knew these things were coming for him, so he was able to out trick them, and so they said that was kind of the creation of these things. And it makes the explanation, you hear a lot of people talk about lizard people, and you talk about, other entities like, the gargoyles and lizard people, but these were all that creation that he created to go after, Raven, and they say those things or those beings still exist, but they weren't like flesh and blood. They were spiritual things, evil things that were created solely for evil. And after this, they said this is where Coyote became that trickster. You know, in this fable or this story, this is where Coyote kind of loses it, and, he turns into that famous trickster, that, if you actually hear those original trickster stories, they weren't like funny children's stories. These were straight up scary, evil stories, and that's the reason why, was because it was for revenge. So again, that's the native version of that. They didn't call it a gargoyle, but they called it a winged lizard. And there's depictions on some caves about these stories. So again, that's what I know, however you guys want to take that. But curious to hear, I know Tyler had some information too.
Oh, yeah. So it's all real similar to the stories that you hear if you grew up in like a Christian church, sort of like this battle between good and evil, this battle between heaven and earth. And the stories that we all grew up hearing, as far as like the Bible stories of, you have Lucifer, who was an angel, and he was supposedly began to question some of the beliefs of God, or not really like maybe challenging, like, seeking the same knowledge, that God had. And there kind of became this battle between, this Lucifer's followers, and I think it was like 40 angels of Lucifer, and of course they were cast out of heaven and sit down to earth, and those are the stories that you hear. He created Lucifer created this, new realm or this new world to rule over, and sort of the same thing. He sent, if I can't attack. Oh, and it was also like in this thing where it was like you can't ever come back into heaven, and you can't ever, attack God again. Like, it's final battle. I tossed you over the top rope. You're done. So instead of attacking God, because he wasn't able to do that any longer, he began to attack the next best thing, which were his people. And that's where he began, putting these little entities in the world. So you hear of things like snakes and, spiders and things like that would, trick people, and hurt God's followers or hurt God's children, so to speak. But those are the stories that we've always heard. What's crazy to me is that I think it's pretty well known now that a lot of the Bible stories that you hear are exact same replicas of like native stories or ancient people stories, especially like the ancient Egyptians. They have the exact same story. The Sumerians, you have the Mesopotamians, they have the exact same stories, except just told with different people, or different beings, or different animals, or different, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing. And I, during my research, just as an art, I don't want to say I'm an art historian, but just, as an art teacher, learning about all of these, some of the very first depictions of, demonic beings, or, where did that come from? Like, how did they just, make that up, or like, where did those stories come from? Some of the earliest paintings, were people like Hermanius Bosch or, Albert Durer, where they're doing these really just jacked up paintings of these weird creatures, winged creatures or owl creatures. There's in one, like a Hermanius Bosch painting of like this owl that has like 6 legs coming out of its mouth, just clam, just very weird, depictions of demons, or depictions of hell, or depictions of, evil. But again, it all dates back to ancient people's time. You have some very similar creatures or similar entities or beings on tombs of Egyptian walls, in hieroglyphics or even statues. So it's crazy to me to think that, like, how those stories have been kind of handed down or passed down, but then sort of taken and fixed to make it fit somebody else's ideals about it. You know what I mean? Or their ways, I guess. So I don't know. Gargoyles and first started appearing like in tops of churches, but they got those statues, those winged creatures from these old paintings or these old like wood block prints, that these old artists were doing. But again, like I said, all those stories came, or those depictions came from somewhere, and it's from ancient peoples that were around before Christianity. They just sort of like commandeered it and made it fit their stories. So I think it's interesting to me, like how that all works. As an ancient peoples thing.
I always heard too that like overseas, they always said that they would put those, like you were saying, to kind of like to keep the water off the buildings and stuff. But I also was told that they were also there to protect these buildings too. Like you were saying, at night they fly off and do whatever they gotta do, or they fight those evil spirits that might try to come and do harm to that building or the people in the building. And that's basically what they were there. But again, I was told this story comes from a Pima man. He was living around Flagstaff, Arizona, and he was telling me that he was traveling somewhere, and he was out in the country part, and he was driving, there's desert areas there, and he said, he was on this long strip of highway, and he was cruising around, and it was late at night, and he saw something. He thought it was a huge bird, off on the side of the road, and it was eating something. And he said the closer he got to it, the bigger it was. And he said by the time he got to it, he said it stood up. And he said when it stood up, he said it looked like it had to be at least 6 feet tall. And it opened its arms or its wings, and they were, at least six feet long wings, and it took off. And he said he saw it go across the sky, across the moon, and then it went over, I guess, these hills or mountains or whatever's in that area, and it was gone. And he said it moved fast, and it had him freaked out so much, he just sped up and, hurried up and got to his destination. And when he got there, his family, asked him what was wrong, because he was just shooken up. And they asked him, what was the matter? And he said, I seen this big old, he said, it kind of looked like a lizard man. He said, but he had wings, and he flew off. He said it looked like he was eating something on the side of the road, and he took off. And, I guess my understanding, there's several other people that have seen that same being in that Flagstaff area. So again, I don't know, but that was the story that was given to me.
Are they like, so we're talking about Robin Jackson from the Classic Will podcast. Are they like, do a lot of sightings happen around there, like Arizona? Because he was saying that one time the tribal police, they got a call about these, like, what they described as they look like those winged monkeys from Wizard of Oz, and they were jumping on this person's roof. And this person, like, didn't know, like, he just said there's something on my roof. It sounds like a lot of people or something. They're jumping around or walking on my roof. And he said, I don't want to go outside because I don't want to know what it is. I don't want to get jumped or something. And he called the police, and the police went out there. And then when they got out there, they, it was nighttime, but the moon's out, you could see shadows, and they said they seen these like winged people hopping around like monkeys on his roof, and they shined the light and they saw like, but they weren't like monkeys, they were like like almost like lizard people with wings on them, and they said like they flashed the light and they turned it off, and they called it in, and then they're gonna like, I don't know what they're gonna do, but then when they were trying to look again, they were gone. And he was just saying like, yeah, I remember that police report, my friend telling me about that police report, and how they do like around there, I guess, like it's near Phoenix, like damn, I forgot the name, but he told me it, but he just said like they're like little winged people is what he was talking about, with long tails. And I was like, holy crap, dude. And then he was talking about his cousin found this cave, I think. I'm trying to find that story. But he found this cave, and he seen like this thing fly out of it, almost like the same thing, but it was like a tall being, like you were talking about, like 6 foot tall, like a man almost, and it just kind of was around that cave, and it just flew off. It took off, and then I was just like, what the heck? And he was just saying, like, I don't know if they're like, if this is where they kind of made their home around Arizona because of the heat, maybe. He said, but I don't know. He's like, I never heard any other gargoyle stories anywhere else. So he's like, maybe you can ask Chris or something if they kind of made their home here, or like they're just kind of everywhere.
I don't know if that's their home, but there are a lot of stories from that area. So, and some of them, man, they're really detailed and way out there. Mm-hmm. And some describe them as lizards, some describe them as monkeys, and some just describe them as it just looks like a man with horns and wings, kind of like a devil. And so those stories, they vary. So, but this story I'm getting ready to tell, it's from the San Diego, California area. I was told that out there in around San Diego, this individual, she lives, outskirts, and she lives in this kind of like a mountain area, and it's kind of a well-to-do area that she lives in. Of course, if you ever been to San Diego, there's a lot of fancy houses up there. But anyway, she was telling me that one night, she has this somewhat, it's kind of like a backyard, but it's on top of a hill, so they don't really have no fence or anything. But her dog, she usually has a dog that, that's where it likes to sleep. Anyway, she heard it barking and whimpering. It was really crying real bad. And she was the only one home, she said. And she said she heard that dog, barking and crying around. And so she said, well, something must be up. So I'm going to, they got all these, she said they have these, I don't know what you call it, like patrol lights or something like that. They're lights that are real strong that you can go in distance. So she turned all those lights on to see what might be out there, bothering her dog. And, she had this great big back window that, she was looking out. When she turned that light on, she seen this thing. She said it was like about 4 or 5 feet tall. Said it had wings, and it had 2 horns on the top of its head. And she said it kind of looked like an owl at first. But she said as soon as she turned that light on, it grabbed her dog with its feet, and it had these big old claws, and it grabbed that dog. And I think she said her dog was something like a husky, so it's a good sized dog. So it just grabbed it and it took off. And that she said she heard that dog whimpering and crying, and then it was gone in the dark.
That's awful.
And so that's how she described it, though. And she said that couldn't have been no owl or
not a husky.
She said it had 2 horns, but it kind of looked like a owl head, but it had horns on it, and it took off with her dog. So
That's crazy.
That reminds me of Jeepers Creepers when he takes off with that girl's brother. And I mean, just the wing. You see the wingspan. You finally see like the color of him, the body of him, and it's just like this. I don't know. You think that's a gargoyle?
Yeah.
Might be.
Maybe.
I wouldn't want to go find out. I know that.
Tyler, find out.
Well, it's funny. Like I said, there's so many different depictions of different gargoyles on sides of buildings. You know, some of them do look like. Some of them look like dogs. You know, I think probably the most famous ones are the ones in Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah.
You know, the demon dogs, I guess. And
yeah.
Some do look like more like like monkeys, and some do look like man. Some do look twisted up into like lizards, dragons. You know, scaly things. It just kind of depends. So there's not like one. What's kind of I find kind of neat about it, I guess, is there's not just like one set idea of this is what it, other than some have wings, some don't. Some have horns, some don't. You know what I mean? So I think it's kind of neat that there's just different interpretations of that all over the world in different places. You know, like I said, some with mouths open, some with mouths closed, some fangs, some no fangs, some forked tongues, some no forked tongues. You know, just it's kind of interesting, you know, like where those ideas all came from. Because it's not like, oh, that's a gargoyle. Because there's so many different ideas of what it is, whether it's a thunderbird or whether it's a dragon or whether it's a monkey, a flying monkey, or whether it's a flying reptile. There's not a one standard definition other than, well, it's a stone and it's on top of a building.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we got. You know, some have wings, some don't. You know, it's just interesting to me.
Were those considered gargoyles, like the dogs in Ghostbusters? Because I remember them, but I haven't seen it in so long.
I mean, they're more like dogs. You know what I mean? Like hellhounds.
Hellhounds, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Not really like because they didn't have. I mean, they were at the foot. Well, no, they were at the top of the building, weren't they?
They were at the top, yeah.
Yeah.
They're just kind of like posed up, though, right?
Yeah, they're posed up like lions.
Like sitting up. Yeah, like lions. Yeah. I didn't even think of that, yeah.
Reminds me like even like Gremlins, you know, like after the...
Gremlins 2? When that one turned into a wing type.
Winged, yeah.
And its little ears covered its eyes.
They're showing that at the Circle Cinema too.
Are they?
Up. Yeah, there's like a big all-night movie fest coming up. Yeah, they just announced it. So I think they're showing Gremlins 2, Inner Space. I don't remember. It's all like little creatures. Is the theme of it. So. Smalls to the Wall, I think is what they're calling it. It's like 5 movies all night long.
Whoa. Yeah. Might have to go to that.
Yeah.
Might see us over there.
I know you. Wear my tore up shirt.
Wear our gargoyle suits.
Yeah. I had one more story, and it comes from Pensacola, Florida. And it's a short story, but I think it's pretty cool. Anyway, this one, this family was going from Pensacola to Louisiana, you know, and if you've ever been in Pensacola, they have this long bridge, you know, that you go across. And anyway, they was crossing that road, and she said it was late at night. They were going, like I said, to Louisiana. Anyway, they was crossing that big old bridge, and she said there was very few cars on the road because it was super late at night. And they was coming upon that bridge, and they saw something sitting on the side of the bridge. And at first they thought it was a man standing on that bridge, and they thought, dang, is he going to jump off, you know, or what? But he was facing in towards the road. And when they were crossing and getting closer, they were saying, well, slow down, because, you know, you don't know if he might jump off in front of the car or what. You know, he might be crazy, you know. Anyway, he was standing on that bridge, and when they got close, it opened its wings. It had wings, and it flew across. But when it flew across, their car hit his feet or its feet, and it cracked their windshield.
Whoa.
And it flew across, and it went towards the ocean. And she said that they slammed on the brakes, and the people that was coming opposite, they slammed on the brakes. And everybody kind of got out, you know, was talking about it, you know, what they saw. And they said when they got close to it, they was telling those people, said it looked like a person, but he was scaly. You know, he had scales on him, and he had a long, like, lizard tongue. He was like eating insects that was coming across, and then it just took off.
That's crazy. How big? Well, obviously big enough to crack a windshield.
Yeah, they said it was man size. They didn't say exactly.
Like 6 feet.
Yeah, so they said they thought it was a man standing on that bridge, you know, on that, you know, I don't know what you call it, that shelf of the bridge. And then when they got close, it took off. So
dang. And Florida, man, you never know. There's a lot of crazy stuff happens in Florida.
Another hot place too.
Yeah, that's true.
Hmm.
We'll have to do another one of these. These are good stories.
Yeah. We'll have to go down to Arizona and Florida.
Yeah. Anybody Arizona listening? Send us your stories.
Yeah, if you have any gargoyle stories.
Lizard people stories.
Lizard people.
Lizards.
I mean, anything about gargoyles, like, because we had a lot of, I don't know, we had a mid amount of information and stuff, but I mean, still it's so not new, but you don't really think about gargoyles. I mean, there's the TV show Tyler was bringing up before we started. There's a cartoon.
It's a cartoon.
Yeah, and then there's a movie called, is it Gargoyle?
yes, that's a good movie. If you haven't seen it, definitely watch it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, and then like I don't know, and then there's not too much information, like, because I was trying to look around on YouTube, but there was like only a lot, so limited amount of stuff, and sometimes it didn't even make sense.
Yeah.
And but if any of you listeners got any stories about gargoyles or any run-ins, or if you're out in Arizona, Florida again, even Oklahoma, everywhere, you know, let us know. Send us your gargoyle stories, and we'd love to discuss more about gargoyles. I just find it very interesting, these stories. It's pretty scary.
Yeah.
Cracking a window and just, I'm assuming he's heavy, flying around and just boom, just crack that windshield. I thought you said like he left scratches on the hood, but just hit that windshield. But let us know, please. Send us your stories about gargoyles.
Muddo.
But let everybody know where to follow you guys, where to find you.
You can find me at Christopher Honka Hill, TikTok and Instagram, or Subway. Hey.
I'm Tyler Randall. You can find me at Scoden_cinema on Instagram, also on Facebook. You can also find me on Instagram at PumpAction_podcast, where we discuss old action movies from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, early aughts. Give you some weightlifting tips, some diet tips. Summer swole, all y'all out there ready to get that beach body, that summer bod ready. I know Chris, he's glistening over there, ready to go.
That's all that grease.
After his run, he's all, he's got a new, invigorated, ready to get back to it. That hard trail. But now you can find me over there, and yeah, it's fun.
And McDonald's.
And McDonald's, yeah.
Yep. Subway and McDonald's. Follow me at Okie Podcast, at RussellMouse49, Russell Sun Eagle, wherever you listen, wherever you're at on social. Follow us, Spirit Talkers.
Yeah,
on
I like it.
Instagram, TikTok, wherever, Spotify, Apple, same podcast, different name. Yeah. So nothing too crazy. But find me at Sonic.
Yeah.
And
Stall 13.
That's right.
That's my number.
Stall 13.
But yeah, we'll catch everybody later. Smudge up.
Motto.